Institute, professor of public policy at USC. Nice to see you. Come on, let's talk. So, how's it going? Good. You're 8 of 9 interviews that I've done today, so we're good through.
So you're exhausted.
You know, I am invigorated because I know you have energy, and you have the energy to do this job as governor. So why don't you tell us, what are you going to do?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's great to see all of you with these lights. I can't see you, but I know you're there. What am I going to do? I think it's time for a grown-up, frankly. I think it's time for someone that understands this is a great state, a state that's given me more than I could have ever imagined growing up in a single-family household, a home of domestic violence and alcoholism. I tell people, never my wildest imagination did I think I'd be sitting in a seat like this. But it's also a state with big challenges. And the biggest challenge is the challenge of affordability. The fact of the matter is, this state is too expensive. It used to be that homeownership was part of the American dream. And now for our kids, it's 3 roommates and a crowded apartment. And for too many families, it's 2 and 3 families to an apartment in the state. We have the highest gas price in the United States of America, and we produce the cleanest fuel. We have the second highest utility costs, gone up 60% in the last 6 years. We have the second highest home prices, and people can't afford this state. And I believe that we need a governor who's going to make the tough calls. You know, when I was mayor, LA was one of the most violent big cities in America. By the time I left with New York, it was the safest big city in America, 48% drop in violent crime. 1 out of 3 schools were failing. By the time I left, it was a 60% increase in the graduation rate. #1 American city in reducing carbon emissions, #5 in the world, and built more infrastructure than anybody in the United States of America. But not only that, we were in the middle of a recession. Wall Street said, downgraded our bond rating. They said we were going bankrupt. I left us on a sound financial footing, making the tough calls. We need somebody to make the tough calls. We're looking at an $18 to $30 billion deficit next year. We needed someone who's done it before. LA is bigger than San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland, and San Diego combined. It has more poverty than among the highest poverty rates of any city in the United States of America. You know, it's the job that's most like governor. And so
I do find that your background is really interesting when you take into consideration that, you know, $7.7 billion budget in Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles. You had to act as an executive over the city, and then also your depth of knowledge in the legislature because you were there for so many years. You're also Speaker of the Assembly.
Balanced 2 budgets with a surplus, with a Republican governor and a Democrat when we didn't have 2/3 vote. We had 42 and 48 votes. We were a purple state when I started out, and I spearheaded the effort to make us a blue state. And so I could tell you, we need somebody that could, you know, like Jerry Brown, someone who's been a mayor, someone who had, you know, been in Sacramento before that, and knew how to make the tough calls. He left us with a $300 million surplus, biggest surplus we'd ever been left. And now we're looking at an $18 billion deficit. If we hadn't had the AI boom, we would have had an $18 billion deficit this year. It went down to 3. Nobody believes it's going to continue. And so we need somebody who's got the wherewithal, the experience to take on the tough issues.
So when I look at your campaign and the way that you've kind of framed yourself versus the other candidates in this race, you really strike me as somebody who's a centrist, that is working with, is willing to work with all parts of labor, with business, in order to kind of move the California economy forward. How do you think, number one, is that frame, do you feel like that frame is correct? And if not, how would you say that you are on the political spectrum here?
I think the frame is correct, except I wouldn't call it a centrist. I'd call it a practical person. You know, I've done this job. I know what it takes. And yes, I work with everyone. You know, in addition to being a proven problem solver at the highest levels, I was a uniter. LA, 70% of LA comes from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. It's a very diverse city. There's a great deal of poverty. I was everybody's mayor. People wanted me to be the Latino mayor and the Latino speaker before that. And I understood that when you break a glass ceiling, you gotta reinforce the idea that you're like everybody else. You're gonna represent everybody. And that's why it wasn't difficult for me to answer the question. What would I say to Republicans who didn't vote for me? I'd say I wanna work with you. Yes, we'll take on these ICE raids. They're despicable. I've never seen anything like it. People, covered from head to toe like the Ku Klux Klan. That's not the middle. That is not centrist. That is right-wing efforts to undermine our economy and terrorize our communities. So I call it more practical. I'm someone that understands that this is a pro-worker state, and it should be, and I came out of the unions. I'm supportive of that. But you can't be pro-worker if you're not pro-business, because business that grows the economy. And the next governor is going to have to be both. Focus on growing. This is the innovation state. This is the state of entrepreneurs where we come to reinvent ourselves. We've got to unleash that talent so we don't have to just cut in the next budget, but also grow the economy.
I think that's something
and
that everybody
economy that works for everyone, not just some of us.
Just absolutely. And then, so in terms of the cost of living in the state of California, which is too damn high for most everybody, the biggest component of that is housing. And so, what policies would you enact or push for as governor to help ease the housing crisis that we have in California?
Well, let me give you an example. If you know LA, we went from 20,000 people in downtown to 60,000 people in my 8 years. 25% of the cranes, all the cranes in the United States of America, were in LA. In the middle of a recession. I'm sorry, apologize for that. We're in LA, 25% of the cranes. I put people to work. I focused on building 3 light rail lines, 1 busway. So what do? We've got to have an all of the above strategy. Yes, we need more homeless housing, but it can't cost $850,000 a unit. Our kids can't afford that. In San Jose and in LA, we're building small, tiny houses for $100,000. I've said we need affordable as well, workforce and market rate. You need an all of the above approach. We need to address a broken California Environmental Quality Act that allows you to sue from Arizona for a project in San Francisco. What is that? For the lawyers in the room, there's a thing called standing. You don't need standing. And you can sue not just on environmental rules, you can sue if you're a company that doesn't want that company to open up an industrial site. You could sue on that because you're in competition. You can sue for a myriad of reasons. So we've got to cut red tape.
We sue over shadows.
Yes, we do. We've got to cut red tape, address, a broken zoning in many of our cities. I mean, you all are grappling with that here in San Francisco. And when I was mayor, did the first transit-oriented development district in the United States of America, built all that light rail and housing alongside of it. Those are the smart things we got to do. ADUs, of course, but very clearly we got to build more. And I got a record on that. Built more homeless housing than the 12 years before that in the middle of a recession. Built more housing than the 12 years before that in the middle of a recession. So got a record building and also, cutting red tape.
Okay, let's talk about that. What kind of red tape did you cut in LA, and what do you think we can cut
Here's an
in
example.
California?
I love San Francisco food scene. I'm a foodie, and
We got a lot of good.
you've got a great food scene here. And so I'd go to San Francisco, I'd go to Chicago, I'd go to New York, I'd go to Miami and Vegas, and I'd try to bring the great chefs here to my town. They said, why would I go there? I'd never go to LA. And I said, hold it. Why are you saying that? They said, well, it's impossible to build a restaurant, to open up a restaurant. It takes 2.5 years. I went back to my staff. I said, why is that? Because there's 12 different departments that you have to go to. I brought them all in one room. We took it down to 6 months. I did that across the board. I brought in McKinsey and Boston Consulting and put dashboards by everything, every campaign promise we had. Housing, the environment, safety, schools, across the board. That's what I'll do as governor. And these dashboards will be open to the public. You'll be able to see the progress. You'll be able to see, if we're really meeting our goals.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about energy, because that is part and parcel of the unaffordability crisis that we're having in California. Utilities, gasoline. What, as governor, would you be able to do in order to bring down the price of energy utilities?
I had a 100% record in the legislature on the environment according to the California League of Conservation Voters. I'm the author of Carl Moyer. The Carl Moyer Act allowed California to provide grants to retrofit dirty diesel engines. It was the biggest effort to clean up the air until AB 32 and SB 32. I told
They
you,
call them gross polluters, right?
right, and I told you what I did as mayor. Every traffic light is synchronized in LA. You wouldn't know with all the traffic we have, but every traffic light is synchronized. I did 144,000 street lamps, all LED. First city in the world. Guangzhou was the second. Planted 400,000 trees, more than any city in the United States of America. Made the port the greenest port in the world. Reduced our water consumption to 1970 levels. But I tell people, anybody that says we're going to get rid of oil and gas in the next few years, they're smoking pot. It's just not true. Norway is one of the greenest countries in the world. They produce oil and gas. That's how they pay for the greening of Norway. We need an all of the above strategy. I'm the only city, the first city, big city, to take the city completely off of coal. But I tell people, yes, we're going to use natural gas as a transition fuel. Today we produce more solar than we could use because we don't have the battery power for it. So you know what we do? We sell it, we give it away to Arizona, the excess power, give it away that we paid for. We give it away for free in the summer, and in the winter we sell it for 2 cents a kilowatt, less than we paid for it. So what do we need to do? We need to address the fact that we need to build a grid. We have 167,000 charging stations, mostly in affluent areas, by the way, and we're Democrats. So I believe that we should have it in every area. Built 167,000 charging stations in the last 10 years. We need 2 million in the next 10 years. And if we built it, we don't have the grid, everybody. Yeah. So let's build the grid. So we need an all of the above approach. Look, the younger people here know this. You're never going to get to net zero without small nuclear. You're just not. Anybody that knows anything about this. So we need small nuclear, we need, yes, solar and wind, we need natural gas and hydrogen as transition fuels. Oil will be around for a while, but just remember this. Our refineries produce the cleanest fuel in the United States of America. Some people say the world, but we ship 75% of our oil from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Ecuador. It's a farce that we're actually, by closing down refineries, going green. We're not. We're bringing them on ships, which that's a haul.
Right.
The ships are dirty diesel for the most part. And so we need to have a smart, all of the above approach that understands this. We've got to build again, everybody. Mm-hmm. We've got to build that grid. We've got to have an all of the above energy solution.
Okay, last question. What is the endorsement that you're most proud of? Is it a grandchild?
I'd like the San Francisco Democrats. Look.
Everybody would like my endorsement.
One of my sheroes is Barbara Boxer. I've known her for 35 years. I endorsed her the first time when all the guys were running, and in LA everybody was with the guys and I was with her. I've known her for 30 years. We did America Fast Forward, the biggest effort to give cities the tools they need to build infrastructure. That was my idea. I took it to her. We took it to Obama, and next thing we did, we signed the legislation. So I'd say Barbara Boxer is the person of whom I am proudest to have her support.
Thank you very much. Antonio Villaraigosa.